Over the years, Americans learned of attempts to oust President Trump even before he was sworn into office. One former Department of Justice official details the revelations in his new book called Above the Law, the inside story of how the Justice Department tried to subvert President Trump. Here to discuss this further is the author himself, former Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Stephanie.
First, I want to ask, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I think first of all, what inspired me was I felt the Mueller report was not what I was promised when I was acting Attorney General. I wanted to make sure that I told that story, but I also wanted to have a historically accurate account of not only my time at the Department of Justice, but also explain how to make sure this never happens again, not only to an American president, but any American citizen.
Your tell-all describes what you saw at the Department of Justice, saying it was so heavily infiltrated by the deep state. Talk about that a little further, especially as it relates to FISA abuses.
Well, it's been well documented that there were all sorts of bad actors, several of which are on the cover of my book, that created a culture at the FBI and at the DOJ that, again, tried to subvert the President of the United States, launched investigations into members of his campaign, including Carter Page, General Flynn, and others. And, you know, I really think that the FISA abuse is not only real. If you look at the Carter Page FISA, it was inaccurate and should have never been granted in the first place if it had been a fair and truthful document. And until those mistakes are cleared up and we get some guarantee from Director Wray at the FBI that these reforms and changes have been made, I think FISA reauthorization is at risk. And it's all such important tools, especially as we combat terrorists and others. But at the same time, we need to make sure these tools are used not against American citizens, but to make sure that they're targeted at the right folks and the protections are real.
Absolutely. And this is so important, especially now because the House, they were going to vote on the FISA reauthorization, specifically three surveillance programs under the FISA Act. But that was pulled on Wednesday. It could be voted on today, but we know President Trump said that he would veto it. Let me ask you this, though. You talk about political subversion. What political subversion attempts do you see against the president in the lead up to November?
Well, so a lot of the attempts by foreigners, whether it's the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, or the North Koreans, we have effectively combated. We did well in 2018, much better than the Obama administration even tried to do in 2016. And so I expect that DHS, the FBI, DOJ, and others that have responsibility are going to be vigilant and make sure the 2020 election goes off without a hitch. You know, that being said, we need to make sure that investigations are not launched inappropriately and that they're properly predicated. Again, one of the things I talk about in my book is how regular order, when restored at the Department of Justice, will be the protection that we all need from some of these politically pointed investigations.
And you make a point, too, because a lot of GOP officials are saying we're using these American taxpayer dollars to launch these investigations, but nothing comes about. What do you want readers to take away from your book?
Well, I want them to take away that, first of all, there are double standards, and we need to eliminate those double standards. We cannot put President Trump and members of his campaign through the fires of hell, and at the same time turn a blind eye to misbehavior and illegality on the other side. But it's a hopeful book. It paints a picture of how we can return to the Department of Justice and the FBI to its rightful place of respect and integrity. And so, you know, I really hope that when people get this book and read it, they understand that, that it is all is not lost and that we can have a better and more effective system of justice.
And that book is available now. Again, it's called Above the Law, the inside story of how the Justice Department tried to subvert President Trump, by former Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker. Thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One American News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One American News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.